my way to the old Burgess Mind. Kind of rough roads, I must admit, if you wish to call them roads. So, to the one side of the road where the pond is, this is the old tailings pile from the Burgess Mine. Again, what you're finding here, this is a syenite, low in silica, and you're going to find the corundum within the syenite. So all you really have to do as a rockhound is just to clear off the rubble on the surface, and you've got virgin rock. So your corundum usually comes as a prism in this area, six-sided prism. It will be either a spindle shape, which is tapering to a point on either side, at either end, or possibly a barrel shaped, in other words, bulging outwards around the prism. Some guidebooks recommend searching right along the water's edge for your prisms. I don't see why the prisms would in any way be concentrated in one area or another. So here you can just see an elongated sort of prism with three of the edges of a six-sided face. There's a corundum crystal wedging out that way and one going straight up. So that's basically what we're looking for. That's more or less the color that you're going to find there. So this little path must lead up to the actual face where they were mining the rock. To me, I would say these tailings piles buried in debris and leaves and things like that would be better pickings, because obviously less people have been there. This is the rock face. So the Burgess Mine took over from the Craigmont mines around 1913 after the disastrous fire up at the Craigmont mill. I guess there was a big explosion there from the dynamite, which was set off by the boiler, killed the blacksmith while he was shoeing a horse, and they transferred whatever equipment and machinery that there was to the Burgess Mine, which is where I am right now. You can have a kind of a little look at it. Large amounts of extracted material, and also from up above. There are trenches up above that were mined for corundum. And also, I guess a little later on, operations moved on to an area known as Jewelville, which I'll probably visit a little later today. But the corundum itself, it's a 9 in hardness on the Mohs scale. And in its finer varieties, it's known as a sapphire or a ruby. That is an aluminum oxide. The difference between the gem and the mineral material, the mineral crystal specimens, is just simply the level of clarity and the freedom from inclusions. So in this area it is not typical to find the gem material, but some has been found. We've got the Rosenthal Sapphire, which was a large blue-green semi-transparent specimen that was found, I believe it was in 2002. So we're going to kind of trip around today, at least that's what I'm going to do, and just look at the area where corundum was mined and just, get a general feeling for what a rockhound can find here. So I'm following a steep and rugged path up to the top where the upper trenches were. Just be careful if you're coming up here. There's a lot of loose rock along the way. But the view, unbeatable. This is corundum country. Here around Craigmont, 517. So here on the scree pile, I've just found a rock with what looked like a pocket, and within it some black corundum crystals. They're vaguely spindle shaped, and one of the telling features is the striations that run across the crystal faces. That's kind of typical of what you would see in a corundum crystal. So here we are at the base of Robillard Mountain, pretty much the largest known syenite and corundum deposit. At the peak of its production in 1906, I believe it was producing 84% of Canada's corundum. Big fire, 1913, destroyed the whole industry in this area, 400 people out of work. But anyway, this is the mine itself, well known for the bats. But we're going to go in and just check it out here. So you can kind of see this is the syenite. It's this reddish rock, and it's pretty common that the corundum is found in the syenite. Now we're wading along there. Sorry, the lighting's not too good, but water's quite deep. A lot of the drill holes you'll find bats, but the interior bats have taken a real beating lately. They've suffered from a disease known as white nose. So anyway, kind of what it's like knee deep in the water. Being careful, hopefully not to stand on any rusty nails or anything like that. You follow up the ATV trails on the right fork of the path, down where you park, brings you up to the side of the mountain, what we call the Klondike workings. Looks like rockhounds have been at it, but all the way up the side of the mountain is exposed rock. So this is what it's like almost all the way to the top. Some areas where there are really, really deep trenches. When this was first discovered, the gentleman who discovered was out picking blueberries. He was on the very top and he noticed the hexagonal patterns from the tops of the crystals all coming together. He called them, he said they're like crude stoppers. So when it was first evaluated, they thought it was phosphate. So it wasn't until a couple of years later that they actually figured out this is corundum. So when they say phosphate, they're probably meaning apatite. So way in the distance, Conroy Marsh. They used to take the corundum by wagon to the Conroy Marsh and then from there ship it down all the way, I believe it was to Barry's Bay, and out to the world from there. So in this lump of syenite I can see many prisms, again with these typical striations across their face. Corundum basically. They used it for, because it's so hard, it was used for polishing gun barrels. It was one of the big, abrasives back in the early 1900s. I mean, here you see the termination of one prism and the side-on view of another prism. This is an interesting feature. I call it the pink trench. I always had good luck just above the pink trench. Obviously there's a reason why they trench it so deeply here. They were having good luck themselves. So following up in that direction, I was finding a lot of corundum crystals. So right now we're actually on the Klondike side of the mountain. It's called the Klondike Diggings. These were the first to close after the fire. The other side of the mountain, I believe that was the Craigmont diggings, who were worked for some time after the fire. There are just tons and tons of ruins off in the bush. This is quite a sizable ghost town per se. The trees have grown up all around it. This must have been some kind of sluice where they actually brought the corundum down from higher up on the mountain. You can kind of see just looking up there. So I mean, you got to ask yourself, when they were sluicing the corundum ore down there, how much of it would spill to the side? And that's a good way for rockhounds to operate. Knowing where the former routes of transport were, where they stored the stuff, where they would refine it, mill it. So down there, you're guaranteed to find stuff if you dig into the rubble down there. So just to summarize, guys, Craigmont, you're going to find generally quite large brassy corundum crystals. And we're talking just off the 517, not far from Combamere. So, bizarre experience just to finish the day off here. I'm cruising along the road at quite the speed here, and suddenly over the top of one of the hills here, as I'm cresting it, there's an outhouse in the middle of the road. It comes just rising up. Turns out it's in the back of a truck. So, that was kind of freaky though. I was wondering, I just couldn't understand how an outhouse was in the middle of the road.